This presentation goes through the use of concise language and avoiding redundant words. As you can see on this first slide, redundant language just refers to anything that's overly repetitive. So a lot of times when we're writing, we start to do this by accident. We don't want to just repeat ourselves and waste words and have more words just to have a longer piece of writing. That's not the point. So we instead want to only use words that are necessary and avoid any of the ones that are too repetitive. So some examples you can see down here. Somebody might say that they need to make plans in advance. Okay, well, there's no other way that you can make plans. Nobody will try to make plans after the fact. So you can just say that we need to make plans. You can get rid of this phrase right here without losing any bit of meaning. Same here, this is the missing watch I lost. Okay, how can you lose something and not have it go missing? You can say, this is the watch I lost. Okay. What is their past history? The history always refers to the past. There's no history in the future, so you don't need this word here at all. You could just say, what is their history? And what is their, is this their final conclusion? If it's somebody's conclusion, it's always going to be the last thing. It's always at the end. They don't have multiple conclusions, like one partway along, then they do another conclusion. Conclusion already means that it's the end and that it's the last one. So the word final here is redundant and shouldn't really be in there. You should just say, is this their conclusion? So you can see examples here. This one has many different cases of repetitive words that we'll look at on the next slide. Okay, so it says, quietly without a sound, they went through the door until they were on the other side. Everyone loudly shouted surprise as they entered. They had tons and tons of balloons, lots of unhealthy junk food, and free gifts on the kitchen table. Okay, so we can get rid of everything I have in blue here. Okay, so quietly already means without a sound, so that can come out. If you go through a door, that means that you are on the other side, so this part was completely pointless, all of this. Everyone loudly shouted. You won't quietly shout anything, so that was not necessary. And we already know that they entered. We already said that, so even though that's not redundant here, we already said it up here, and we can get rid of it. They had tons and tons. Okay, and tons doesn't really add to this at all. Lots of unhealthy junk food. There's no other type of unhealthy food. In fact, it might sound a little bit better to get rid of unhealthy here and just say lots of junk food. But either way, whichever word you get rid of would be fine here because they mean the same thing. And free gifts on the kitchen table. If you had somebody ask you to pay for a gift, that would be kind of strange. That wouldn't really be a gift. Okay, so the word free there is completely redundant and should be taken out of that sentence. Here's another one. The shirt I'm looking for is purple in color. I have not made my final decision yet, but I believe my opinion is that this store has been unsatisfying and disappointing. This statement of mine has been quite repetitive and redundant. Okay. So once again, everything in blue could be taken out. If you say that you're looking for something purple, you don't have to say purple in color because there's nothing else you could be referring to. So purple is a color. I have not made my final decision yet. Okay, once again, if you make a decision, that means that it's done. So final isn't really necessary there. You could just say, I've not made my decision yet. My opinion is that could come out because you already say, I believe. Okay. And here, disappointing and unsatisfying mean the same thing. So it could just be the store has been disappointing. The statement of mine, nobody else is talking, so obviously it's mine that I'm talking about, has been quite repetitive and redundant. Repetitive and redundant mean the same thing, so that could be taken out. Okay. So now you should give the first 10 problems on your sheet a try by crossing out the phrases that you think are redundant. Again, this means that the words are repetitive. Crossing them out shouldn't change the meaning of the sentence at all, and the sentence should still make sense if you read it without them. Okay, so give that a try, pause this video, and then come back to this when you're ready to move on. Okay. There's another way that you could be overly wordy with your sentences where you're using words that you really shouldn't. So this is just where you have words that don't need to be in there. They're not redundant, but they just don't really have any purpose. Okay, so examples here would be, I thought that you were meeting us here. Okay, you could just say, I thought you were meaning us here. The word that doesn't add anything to the sentence. The sculpture was made out of clay. Again, you could get rid of this and just say the sculpture was made of clay. Okay, it doesn't add anything to this. The cause of this is because of what happened yesterday. This one's a little repetitive, but a lot of people do this, so I wanted to emphasize that you don't have to say the cause of this is because. Like, a lot of times people do this type of sentence, but you could just instead say this is because of what happened yesterday. Okay. When you're writing an essay, particularly a persuasive essay, you should get out or you should get rid of any words like I believe that or I think that, anything like that, because since you're writing it, we already know that it's your opinion. Okay, you don't need that in any of your essays, unless it's a really personal reflection type of essay, but usually you'll be writing something where you're giving facts or you're giving your statement about something, so you don't need phrases like I believe that. Instead, you could just say the monkey shoes are symbolic of internalized racism. Okay, which obviously refers to American-born Chinese when we went through it. When writing absolutely anything, you should avoid sentences like this. Okay, this whole thing could come out, and people do this quite often because they don't know what to say, and they're using it just to get their thoughts in order, but it ends up sounding really pointless. Okay, so this says, this paragraph will inform you about the dangers of pollution. Pollution is a significant problem in the world today. Okay, so if this is your first sentence of a paragraph, it's very likely that your next sentence is going to go through what the problem actually is that you're going to be talking about. So this says pollution is a significant problem in the world today. Okay, that means that I should assume you're going to talk about the dangers of pollution or why pollution is a problem. You don't need a sentence like this coming before it. It's all filler and it doesn't do anything. So do not start paragraphs like this. Do not start essays like this. Okay? Do not finish paragraphs like this either. Do not say this paragraph was informing you about the dangers of pollution. Okay, that adds nothing. Okay, so please avoid that. It makes us English teachers cringe. Okay. This paragraph is about the importance of family. Something should have sounded off to you already. Family is important to everyone. I have noticed that my family that I have is helpful when I have difficult problems that I am going through. It is clear that anyone can see how family is important. Okay. So first of all, that sentence I began with is completely unnecessary. Do not start paragraphs like that. Okay. Then we have I have noticed that, and I could just say I've noticed my family. That I have, okay, so if I'm saying it's my family, it's the family that I have, so that's not needed. Is helpful when I have difficult problems that I'm going through. Okay, there is no need to say that. If you have difficult problems, you're the one going through them, so that phrase doesn't really mean anything. It's clear that anyone can see how family is important. Okay, we've already stated that it's clear, which isn't even completely necessary here, but I kept that because the one that I want to emphasize is you don't need to say it multiple times like this. Okay, a lot of people do that, but this isn't really adding anything to the sentence. You could just say, it is clear that family is important. You could kind of adjust it and say, it is clear family is important. It just doesn't have a very good flow to it. That's why I left the that there in that case. But even that one could come out theoretically. So all of these are extra words that do not need to be in that sentence. Okay, so once again, you should now go on to your worksheet and practice with problems 11 through 20. Okay, hopefully you are now done with those. You've paused the video and you're coming back. Okay, we'll go through our last part of this. Okay, and that is when you have phrases that are just way too long. It's not that they're not needed, but you could do the exact same thing with often a single word. Okay, so some examples are I wanted to come due to the fact that this is the last game. Okay, we could instead just say I wanted to come because this is the last game. Does the exact same thing. That word because replaces 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words from due to the fact that. Okay. The only reason that you would ever use something like this instead of because is if you really have been using the word because a lot and you just need to change how you're saying it. But otherwise, because would always be preferable. I provided an explanation of it, but they still did not agree. Okay, provided an explanation of is the exact same thing as explaining. Okay, I explained it. That's what you're actually saying. Okay, don't try to sound fancy by doing something like this. Some people think this sounds like more professional type of writing because it uses more words, I guess. But if you can replace a long phrase with a single word, you almost always want to do that. Okay, I explained it, but they still did not agree. My friend, whose name is Jake, met me at the park. Okay, a bunch of this is completely unnecessary. We could just say my friend Jake met me at the park. Okay, this is way too long of a phrase for what we're actually trying to get across here. Okay. This says I gave a presentation on the topic of unnecessary words due to the fact that it is something everyone faces struggles with. Even while we have conversations, we often have a tendency to say more than we need to say. Okay. So, we could change I gave a presentation to I presented. And then on the topic of, we could actually just say on unnecessary words, that could come out entirely. Due to the fact that could change to because. So now I would say I presented on unnecessary words because it is something everyone faces struggles with. And this whole thing should actually be in blue. It is something everyone faces would be sufficient. Okay, or everyone struggles with would be fine. Even while we have conversations, so even while we talk, we often tend to say more than we need to say. Okay, more than we need would be plenty. So I could change all of this to say, I presented on unnecessary words because it is something everyone struggles with. Even while we talk, we often tend to say more than we need. It says the exact same thing, just with shorter phrases in here. Okay, you're going to practice the same thing with problems number 21 through 30. Please follow the directions on your sheet, not the directions up here. But do make sure that you're not changing the meaning of any of your sentences. That should be true for all of the practice problems that you've done. Okay, I hope that this video was helpful. If you still have questions or are struggling with any of the problems on your sheet, please let me know and I'd be happy to help. Thank you.